Risk is an undesirable event likely to happen. But the truth of the fact is that there is no area where we can prosper and where you do not find any risk. The current scenario is such that higher the risk one takes, higher the growth he or she will see. Leaders should not shy away from risk, because risk management is a very proactive action that anticipates the types of risks and helps the individual or the company to come out with the proactive early actions, so that in case such risks occur, the organization or the business is prepared to handle the risk with the absolutely no damage or no fault lines. I have seen during my audits, especially for ISO 9001 or AS 9100 standard for quality management system, that the organizations come out with the 2 or 3 risks and declare that those are the only risks they have. When I dug deep down using the knowledge which I am sharing with you now on what are the several major types of risks and business and enterprise can have, I found the same people coming out with 18 to 20 risks. Where are 2 to 3 risks? Where are 18 to 20 risks? And within no time they came out with the mitigation and risk handling processes also, and they were so happy with the exercise. Now the lesson learned is best way is to know these major risks, be prepared to handle them upfront, so that the business has no risk of failure, no risk of sinking, no risk of falling out of place and becoming bankrupt. Please see this quote here by Tom Peters, which says, not taking risk is a bigger risk than taking risk. So it is better to take risk, have proactive risk management actions readily available with all the risks identified, because risk identification is a major task where I am trying to help out through this presentation. So not taking risk is a bigger risk, that's what he says. If you want to grow, you need to take risk, but take calculated, known risks which you can handle. Hi, this is Jagdish Kumar doing this presentation on major types of risks every leader must know. If you are having single ownership business, you are the leader there. If you are at a senior position or a moderate, medium management level in the organization, you are the leader there. So these are the risk categories which you need to know. The 9 major types of risks everyone should know. The first risk is market risk. I will explain each one of them in the subsequent slides. Second risk is organizational risk. Third risk is know-how or technology related risk, like not having the technology and so on. Finance risk. Product or service related risks, the acceptance by the customers, whether you are able to provide all the requirements of the customer in your product or not. HR risks, whether we have enough skill sets to manage our production, manage our services or not. Operational risk, work related risk, like do we have too many single suppliers who may not supply the item later due to some untoward incident and your business may be taken for a ride. Cyber threats, which are universal now and most important aspect to consider now. And compliance risks, especially when we are in any business, there will be compliance requirements. It may be environmental, it may be legal. These have to be followed, and you may have challenges to fulfill them, which becomes a compliance risk. Now we will know each one of these 9 risks in required detail. First, market risk. First thing in market risk, in my vast experience I have seen, is failure to see the market conditions, especially the legal requirements. For example, if I am exporting a PCB or a soldered assembly, electronic assembly to European bloc, restriction on hazardous substance is very strict, RoHS. I cannot solder those PCB components using lead solder, which we are doing normally in India. If I do such a mistake, I may be fined for millions of dollars because I have broken the law of the land as far as my customers' country is concerned. So moral of the story is we should know the legal requirements of our country as well as legal requirements of the country to which we may be exporting. Also, we should be very clear about government's policy. For example, the emission that is permitted from the vehicles is restricted by government policy. If a company X manufactures car and sells those cars which have emission hazard more than the stipulated one by the government policy, it cannot sell or it may get into legal tangle. So government policy should be respected when you look into business risks. Competition is a major driver in market condition. If the competition is stiff, I am now hard pressed. I will be in a position to earn the profit only if I can bring down my manufacturing cost, fixed cost or variable cost so less that I can even then sell the product at my target price. Or in other words, if it is a monopoly item, I can fix my own manufacturing cost, my own profit margin. If it is a competitive item, still I may be into a scenario where manufacturing cost plus profit I can think of. But if it is a stiff competition, then I should look at what is the market price. Within that market price, how much I can reduce the money to make that item and how much of profit margin I can still earn, meeting all the requirements of the customer. You can now visualize how the strategy changes based on the competition in the market condition. Customer expectations is the second point, major point. We should know the customer's preferences and try to fulfill the preferences more than anything else. For example, if somebody is purchasing an umbrella, the first preference from the customer is that it should never leak or there should not be any seepage of water down. That is the first requirement. Then how fashionable it is, how nice it looks becomes the second preference. So first preference unless it is fulfilled. Fulfilling the second or third preference at a higher quantum never helps in the business. Please note this. Quality and reliability, they go without saying. And price. Customer is knowledgeable nowadays that price being less doesn't mean cheap. Cheap is not economical. You will lose more money in repairing and maintenance, or you will see a scenario the product does not work after some time at all. But price must be economical and it should be competitive. This should be understood by enterprises and the leaders. Third point under market risk is market requirements like delivery time. You know, 2 decades back, if somebody books a scooter, he is prepared to wait for 6 months to collect the scooter. Now, can you imagine such a scenario? Our expectation is that we will get into the showroom and come out with the scooter without any delay. If there is a delay in that particular showroom, immediately we will forget that showroom and go to another nearby showroom. We know there is one more showroom available and get things done as per our requirement. Branding is very, very important. Right from the beginning, company should build its brand for quality, brand for reliability, brand for apt pricing and so on. This branding helps a lot for the company because as the companies do diversification and get into newer and newer products, the new products get accepted within no time by the market rather than being questioned. That's a great advantage apart from the current products selling without much marketing effort. So branding is very, very important. This is the market requirement which you should keep in mind right from the beginning. Aggressive marketing sometimes is required, especially when the market is very, very competitive, and you should create your own unique selling propositions which you call as USP, and you should aggressively propagate them so that you get higher customer preferences for your products and you can sell more. Next point under market is what will sell and what won't should be very clear in our minds. What is the use? I make an item which is slightly obsolete, say pager. Who will purchase my pagers now? People will purchase only the mobile phones. So what will sell and what won't sell? That sensitivity should be there with the organization, and this should be captured at the earliest. Any lag here will lead in overproduction and being burdened with the non-saleable items. Next, out of 9 risks we covered 1. The second one is organizational or enterprise level risk. One is supply chain risk. This is a major risk nowadays. Any major company will have 80% of their production requirements or service requirements being fulfilled by their supplier and supply networks, which is called as supply chain. If for some critical requirements I do not have the suppliers, or if I have many items where I am facing single suppliers situation, threat of single suppliers, now my risk is enormous. If that particular single supplier tomorrow closes his shop or is not able to deliver, my entire major system delivery gets impacted. This is a huge risk of supply chain. Next is severe competition. As we told, competition decides your major strategies. So if competition is not there, I can have manufacturing cost plus profit. If the competition is severe, now I have market price minus my manufacturing cost, which I should work hard to minimize, only can be my profit. So threat from new players is not to be undermined. New innovative companies come out with the new innovative products which within no time can swamp away or sweep away the existing products of reputed players so far. So threat from new players is a major enterprise risk that should be kept in mind by every company, by every businessman. Environmental considerations cannot be ignored. For example, if I am making vehicles, as I mentioned in the earlier example also, there is an emission control, we have to fulfill those. Suppose I am in a company where hazardous chemicals become my effluents. I cannot release these effluents into the environment without fulfilling the environmental regulations, like diluting the acidic effluent with the water, making it manageable, and then only releasing into the environment and so on. If you do not fulfill this, you will be legally punished. This is what you need to be keeping in mind. Please do not ignore environmental conditions and considerations. Environmental considerations can be the business considerations. Environmental considerations may be the government policy related also. IP protection, very important. You being a bigger organization may have your own IPs. How do you protect them is very important, because information is always under threat, and this is a huge valuable information you have in the form of IP. If it gets leaked, then the entire value gets totally diluted, and you will lose your unique selling proposition, you will lose your market edge. Asset optimization is very important. You should not go for investment on capital assets and so on recklessly. You should see how you can optimize the current assets and deliver what you have to deliver now, the increased demand for example, and how well you are able to utilize the assets. Fixed costs also matter a lot. If my company has higher overhead, my profitability comes down. I cannot be in the business. If I have to pay royalty whereas my competitor has his own technology, now I am at a disadvantage. The royalty money I pay to the TOT partner or technology transfer partner is a huge burden on me, which I cannot escape from. The competitor doesn't have that burden. Naturally, he will be able to ride over me, or he may be able to take over my business also. Franchisee also another similar scenario, where if I have to pay the franchisee, that money becomes a fixed expenditure for which I have to earn and pay. So this becomes my additional financial burden also. Consumables, whether they are being licensed to be procured or whether there is a restriction on procurement of them, like acids, energy, whether it are available or whether there is a scarcity of energy, whether the utilities are easily available in the nearby sources, or you may have to procure from long distance, then logistic cost will give you a disadvantage, and so on. Now we will get into the third major type of risk out of 9 types. Know-how related risk. I may be now seeing a huge market potential for a particular product. I may be having the infrastructure to make that product, but if I do not have the right technology know-how, then there will be a gap and a risk for me to now handle, which I may have to quickly manage by technology transfer or collaboration, and so on. This becomes a technology risk. If that technology is not at all available, it may become a huge cost burden also. For example, taking my experience, we had to do friction welding. To our shock, at that point in time, there was no company in India that was able to do the friction welding, which initially we were not knowing. Afterward, this was revealed. Only there was one most economical supplier who could do it for us in France. Now you imagine the situation, my supplier is in France, I have to deliver the item, get it done and back, and so on. Taxation, customs, what are delays? You can just see, because one technology could not be planned immediately, what kind of a enormous risk that the company had to undergo. Technology selection. Select the right technology, simple technology or economical technology, but not at the cost of safety, not at the cost of legal compliance. This you please keep in mind as you select the technology. Technology gaps should be very clearly understood in the beginning itself as your risk management approach, and if it is not available, whether it is available within the country, within the region, nearer it is better, because your logistics cost will be reduced. If you have to go abroad, then it is an enormous cost and enormous delay. This should be understood. If there are small gaps in technology, quickly you can recoup by going for quick fix technology transfers from here and there. This strategy now, as you can see, has to be evolved, and that can be evolved only by capturing these risks. Obsolescence is when my product becomes no more usable in the market, or the raw material or the input component I want from my product is now more available in the market because it has become now old and not more in the production. Such threats should be identified in the beginning itself, and you should be prepared to handle the obsolescence by immediately looking for an alternate material as the threat is foreseen, not after the threat, and going for redundancy and other methodologies by which you can circumvent this obsolescence problem. There are some organizations which have softwares which can predict the obsolescence of electronic components well in advance, so that the companies are ready with their action plans to do alternatives before the item becomes no more available in the market. Just an example. IP rights restrictions become technology risk. You have one knowledge of how to do, but it is under the IP or patent by of a competitor or some other organization. You cannot replicate that. This has to be respected, because if found violating, it can be a serious threat to your brand image. It can be a serious threat in terms of punishment also. Deployment challenges means I know the technology. For example, for the gap one technology, I had done the TOT, and now the technology is available from overseas into my company, for example. Now the real challenge starts. Knowing the technology is small part, how you are able to deploy that technology and get the required output. This is a major physical challenge. This should be clearly captured and handled. Partnership related challenge, like a TOT partner related challenges. You may have a TOT, and as you continue with your business, you may need upgrade. The TOT partner may refuse to give the upgrade. There could be misunderstanding between the partners and so on, which can kill the business. So this has to be handled tactfully. One of the major support for this is good communication, upfront, upright communication. We will get into the fourth, that is finance related risk out of the 9 risks. Working capital risk. Suddenly, if I see a huge market potential, I need to make numbers in huge numbers, but I do not have the firm order. Now it will be a challenge for you to convince your financiers and get the working capital, means money for purchasing the raw material, making the item and sell, and after selling you can repay the money to the bank with the interest. This is the working capital related risk will happen, especially for small scale businesses. This should be handled. Credit period, sometimes you may have to give credit to your customers. In such a scenario, how much of credit you can give? Your competitor may be giving too long a period of credit to take away the business. Then you need to make your own strategies and what you can tolerate, what you cannot. But please remember, you cannot extend the credit period beyond what your company can tolerate. Your company cannot survive then. Return on investment is very, very important. You have invested on a new product, manufacture, technology, infrastructure, raw materials, manufacturing and so on. How quickly you are able to realize back that investment in crores that you have done for this product? That is very, very important. That is called as return on investment. Faster it is, means if I can recover the money within earlier number of years, it is much better than being able to recover the money over a long period of time or long number of years. Sundry debtors is the money that you think customer will pay you and you think no, customer owes to you, but customer may not be willing to pay that at all because your product had not delivered so many requirements of the customer. Your product had been not good enough. Your product had been not accepted by the customer and so on. These sundry debtors, even if they are genuine, should be recovered at the earliest. And there could be huge money that you think it may come and it may not. This finance risk has to be upfront addressed. Over inventory is a risk I need not explain. More the inventory, more will be the money locked up. And if you have shelf life items, you know the scenario now. The entire item after shelf life becomes a scrap and the entire money is gone down the drain. Inventory is a huge factor and is a waste also. Over inventory is a waste. Bad debt, if your company has, that will speak for itself about your company and it will create a huge challenge for the company to further come back on track. So prevent bad debts or threat of bad debts at the earliest. This has been my experience. Foreign exchange fluctuation can have huge impact on you. For example, you have already taken the contract for delivering n number of items to a local customer, but one of the major ingredient is to be imported. Now if the foreign exchange price goes up, say dollar price goes up, your import cost goes up, your profit margin becomes narrower and narrower. Sometimes it may take away your entire profit also. On the other hand, if you are an exporter, foreign exchange becoming weaker gives you more profit also. So foreign exchange fluctuation can be an opportunity for some people, can be a risk for some others. So this, but it is a finance risk which cannot be ignored at all. Taxation loss, like introduction of GST suddenly became a totally different jerk for many large organizations, especially when they are handling the export business or export import involved and so on, or multi-locational companies having some production elements done here, some to be continued in some other country, and these various permutation combinations had a lot of finance risks. Interest rate fluctuation is another risk. Higher the interest rate, more will be the borrowing cost for your working capital, narrower will be your profit and so on. Now we will get into the fifth risk out of 9, that is product or service related risk. Some companies have output as products, some companies have service as the output. Both have their risks. Customer value enhancement is a risk because you may be easily able to meet 90% of the customer's requirements. You may struggle with the 10%, which your competitor may be able to deliver easily. Then your ability to deliver value to the customer, what customer is prepared to pay for, becomes less and your business becomes difficult to manage. On the other hand, features. Features also be very careful. Now we have mobiles with hundreds of features, we may be using only 5 or 6 features. That's a different story. But if you provide unnecessary features in the market, for example, could be in some other product, you may have to charge more to the customer for having provided the features which are not required for the customer at all. Customer may find it very expensive and he may go for those products which just meet their requirements. This has to be very, very carefully understood by us. Pricing is very important. We discussed it always. Not being cheap alone. Cheap is not economical, but being economical is important. Performance versus bulk. Sometimes, for example, if I make parts for aerospace, spacecraft or aircraft, when they get mid-air, the bulk should be as minimum as possible. Weight should be much less. I have seen scenarios where I used to struggle for grams, weight reduction in grams, volume being less, miniaturization required, and so on. Performance versus size or bulk should be such that performance should be more and your bulk, volume, or your size should be much less, or miniature should be very good. Turnaround time. The moment I take the customer's order, I deliver and realize the payment. That entire cycle is called as turnaround time. This is a service risk. Unless you deliver a good product, quickly put it into service, you cannot realize the money faster. So you got the point now. Unless your service is accepted by the customer, say software package, you cannot realize the payment. Turnaround will not be complete. So these are the product service related risks. Now we will get into the sixth risk, that is human resource related risk. The destiny of the company is decided by the talent of the human resource the company owns, and human resource in terms of skill sets, in terms of multi-skill skill sets, you may have risks in the era when the technology is changing very fast, once in 3 years, and so on. Employee satisfaction. American Society for Quality always emphasizes that satisfied customers can be generated only by satisfied employees. So you have to look inward, see the people are reasonably satisfied. If they cannot be satisfied to the fullest extent, communicate, convince them why is the ground reason because of which you are not able to satisfy their requirements in full, so that they are contented, they know this scenario, and they are willfully cooperating and supporting the cause of the organization. So employee satisfaction is very, very important. Second is people competency. As we understood, competency is not just my degree, it is my knowledge, my skill, and my most important is my attitude to contribute my maximum, my passion to contribute. Right skills in right quantities also become challenges for the organization. You may have skilled people, very few, not enough. So right skill, not only that, in right quantities also could be a challenge. People talent could be a challenge. Talent retention has become a major task, major challenge for many of the companies, because talented people will have lot of opportunities outside the organization also. Attrition is another challenge, human related challenge, that we should be taking care. Your policies and your work environment, your motivational factors should be so good that attrition is a minimum, because to train up another person and bring him to the level the person who has left the company has reached would be taking at least few months, if not years. Organization culture building is very, very important. A culture of contribution, a culture of passion, a culture of empowerment, a culture of work satisfaction goes a long, long way in enhancing the performance of the organization. On the other hand, TQM also, as we discussed, contributes to organization's culture. If the culture of the organization is bad, it is like a slow poison. The company starts degenerating very fast, and culture cannot be turned around overnight. This you please remember. It has to be built through efforts and patience over a period of time. The seventh risk type is operational or administrative risk. Inventory we discussed already. It's an administrative risk because huge money gets locked up to the level that it draws the attention of administration. Legal and regulatory requirements fulfillment. Any challenge there becomes an operational or administrative risk, because legal requirement, if somebody is not fulfilling, straight away punishment. Most of the time the punishment is to the chief of the organization, CEO of the company. Regulatory requirement, you get one warning and then you need to comply with. Safety, you cannot compromise. Any safety hazard because of your product can lead to catastrophe for you in terms of your bad brand image and in terms of litigations also. Quality and reliability, we have discussed many times. This is an administrative risk because you need to have this quality focus and the reliability focus right from the CEO of the company. The commitment should be demonstrated from top management. Then only down the line the culture will percolate and the results will be visible. Liability and safety may go sometimes together. Liability means the customer uses my item and gets into a hazard. Now whatever compensation he will claim in the law of court, I may have to actually pay up. This becomes a liability. Apart from other liabilities like warranty, which is legal anyway, you have committed that you will give warranty for so and so period. If anything goes wrong within that period, you will service and replace free of cost, but still it is a cost burden to the company that cannot be ignored. Warranty cost will be zero. Customer service related cost, more the service calls, more will be your money expenditure, more will be the resources needed by you, and more the customer service calls, less and less will be the reputation for your organization. It will create ripple in the market, because we know in satisfied customer will tell only 5 future customers that this product is good. An unsatisfied customer will tell future 20 customers, potential customers, that don't purchase this item from so and so company. So customer service, stakeholder management is very, very important. Even if you are not able to fulfill the ego of one of the major customers, for example, it can take your business for a ride. Even if you are not able to fulfill one of the requirements of your TOT partner and there is a misunderstanding, it can kill your business. So stakeholder management is very, very important, including legal, financial, the employees down the line whose satisfaction, customers satisfaction, and so on. Stakeholder management becomes very, very important element. Now we'll get into the last but one, that is cyber threat, which is very, very common now. Breach from supplier side. You would have given strategic critical IP information to your supplier under non-disclosure agreement. Somehow due to some uncontrollable reason or whatever laxity from supplier side, it may get breached, now gone. Your entire value, unique selling proposition gets diluted. So breach can happen, cyber threat can happen from supplier side, it can happen from malwares, these softwares intentionally planted by the criminals so that they can take away your valuable information and data. Antivirus, if it is not effective enough, it can lead to cyber threat. Hacking or phishing, data theft through several means can create a cyber threat. I may lose my drawings, I may lose my manufacturing know-how, I may lose my patent and its value, and so on. Unauthorized access, intentionally or by mistake, and now it has become public. These are the risks under cyber threats generally seen. Now the last risk, that is compliance risk, because every organization is in a scenario where it is bound by so many legal and regulatory requirements. Legal and regulatory requirements you have to fulfill, you have no choice absolutely. Restriction on hazardous substances, as I mentioned, if it is strict in a particular country where you are exporting the item to, you have to also follow them in your place, see that you are compliant. This has to be known to you. So moral of the story is you should not only know the law of land from your area, you should know the law of land of your export customer and his nation, his land. System standards related compliance risks. There can be a mandate. From example, if I am supplying to Government of India may say your product should be compliant to MIL standard. If it's a defense item, then I have to follow the system standard. It can be quality standard, it can be other standards like ISO 9001, ISO 14001, AS 9100, ISO 27001, and so on. The system standards have to be complied with. or it can be industry standard. For example, if you are making televisions, there is an industry common standard. Every television by every company will almost be nearer to that and commonly equal in quality, except some small edges here and there, but minimum you have to comply with the industry standard requirements. Safety standard you have to comply with. Customer can give customer's own standard and say the product should comply with this. Then you have to study the customer standard. This is a bigger risk. Understand, digest, implement and comply. This becomes a major risk at times. And you should ensure that your company under no circumstance is going to do any intellectual property violation, infringement. This is a major factor. Now please do not ignore this also, you keep in mind. Please subscribe to my channel to have more and more value adding sessions like this, which can give you a lot of overview on how to run a business, how to run your enterprise, how to do well in your career, how to contribute more to your organization and so on. Please press the bell icon if you have liked this vast collection I have done for you to be comfortable in your risk management and be successful. Please give a thumbs up if you have liked this presentation, bell icon to get further notifications, and please share this with your friends who may need this knowledge and can benefit from this knowledge. Thank you so much for all your support, and thank you so much.